That leaves us with grades. We want you to use the Moodle to basically record grades. You can simply use it to basically just record electronically everybody's grades for your course, or you can use it to actually tabulate your grades. I'm going to show you how to use it to tabulate your grades in the most minimal sense, the most basic sense, so that hopefully enough people want to use it that way. But if nothing else, just record the grades so students can go in and can see what their grades have been. So what I did, as I was talking, I obviously went to under administration. There's a link to grades. So this is the one time you're not going to add a resource or add an activity, but you're going to click on grades, and you're going to see your students there with the attendance, which we showed you earlier, already starting to be calculated. And you're going to go up to choose an action, which is up here underneath the Moodle heading. And you're going to want to go to categories and items. For the purpose of this minimal use, you can click on simple view. And basically you're going to get a very simple box like this with your course number or name and just the attendance and the course total already in there. Now with the grade book, there's a couple of steps that will seem rather laborious, but they're really not, because they're very simple and they really make a lot of sense. First off, all of us have categories for our course. Students don't just get grades randomly. They get grades for tests. They get grades for quizzes. They get grades for papers. And we typically rather weight those differently. So first, just put in your categories. So your first category, well, you have tests, so we'll type that in, tests. Under aggregation, for the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to use simple weighted mean of grades, which is how most of us use grades, just simply that's worth 40%, something else is worth 20%. And then that's all you're going to have to do on this screen. The rest of that information, don't even worry about. You're going to click Save Changes, and you're now going to have a category for tests. Now let's go to your second category. Many of us also have students do quizzes, so I'm going to do the same thing with a category there. And same thing, I'm going to choose a simple weighted mean of grades. Go down, Save Changes. And you now see that that's added as a second category. And then just to be complete, and as an English teacher, I hope all of us assign some papers. So we'll put that in there. Again, simple weighted mean of grades. And Save Changes. So now I have my three categories. Now we want to add individual items within those categories, which is the grade item. So you go back, let's say you basically have two tests. You have your midterm. I'm going to put that in there. In this case, you don't have to change anything. The maximum grade is 100. That's what most of us will use. If you do something different, you can obviously change that. But basically just put that in there, Save Changes. Now this is the only kind of tricky part to doing this. Midterm is shown up down here under, in a kind of not under any category, but you obviously want it under tests. See this icon right here that basically looks like two arrows, one going down, one going up? That's literally the move, as you can see when you hover over it. If you click on it, it's now going to allow you to move this to wherever you want, which in this case is within tests. Taking a second. There we go. And see, it's now shown up under tests. So we can now add the final, because in my class I'm just going to have two tests. I prefer much more than working with papers. Again, if I want to change the grade, I don't want to. 100 points is what I'll use. Save Changes. And again, just that one extra step that may not seem intuitive. Hover over that move and click it under tests. This time it went much more quickly, which is nice. Now, before you finish this up, let's say, how much are your tests worth? This is where you're going to want to, you can see weight. This is where you want to determine. So if you've decided that what tests are worth 30% of a student's final grade, you're going to put in 30 there, and you're going to want to save that. Whoops, excuse me. You want to save that change. So now you got the 30 there. Okay, so now we're going to go to the quizzes. We're going to add our quizzes. Just for the interest of time, I'm only going to have 2 quizzes when I might typically have many more. And it's going to be the same thing. I've typed in quiz 1. I'm going to keep 100 points as the basic scale. Save changes. Again, we're going to have to move it so that it's under the category of quiz. And it's shown up. So we can go through this completely, and I can show you how this calculates. I'm going to add one more quiz. Quiz 2. Notice the dates these are occurring don't matter for the gradebook. It's just simply an overall record. Save changes. We're going to have to move it. Make sure it's under quizzes and not quiz 1. I mean, because that's going to kind of change the weight of it. All right, let's say your quizzes are worth 20%. So you put in 20 there. Hit Save Changes. And that's now permanently recorded as 20%. And finally, we're going to do papers. So give me a second to, again, have us put in, for the purposes of a shorter discussion here, demonstration, just 2 papers. We're going to do paper 1. Save changes. Going to move it. This may look like I'm going very fast, but obviously with the video you can slow it down a little bit. And it really is intuitive. I've actually never taught with Moodle before I came here. I taught with Blackboard, and so I've had to learn a lot of this myself too. And then paper 2. Save changes. Whoops, excuse me. Move it. Great, they're now both in there. And so finally we're going to have papers worth 40%. I forget what I have for attendance. I'm just going to put 40 in there. Whoops, apologize. And I may have to go back and change one of these, but for now, so now they're all in. All the various assignments that the students are going to be graded on are there and recorded. The percentages are there. So at this point, since I've saved all those changes, I'm going to go back to my main category of grades. Now you'll see each student listed with each of the various assignments running across: final, midterm, quiz 2, quiz 1, paper 2, paper 1. What you can now do is, when you're ready to start entering grades, you go back to Choose an Action up here in the left corner. You're going to use the grader report, which makes sense. I've got to turn editing on. And now you've got a chance to enter each of those grades. So let's just see how this worked. Mr. Cummings on his final got an 88. On his midterm, he got a 79. For quiz, don't even do a category total because it's going to calculate it for you. On quiz 2, he got a 90. And on quiz 1, he got a 77. I have to slide over for the 2 papers. Paper 2, we got a 95%. Whoops, I'm sorry. Well, we'll just stick with 85. And on paper 1, he got a 92%. And we're going to update. And look, all the totals have been put in. His category, his total grade for the test is an 83.5. Ironically, that's the same thing you end up with the quizzes. And a little higher for his papers, which means his final grade will be a pretty solid B, 85.72. So Mr. Cummings can follow along with each grade. He can see exactly where he stands as you put that information in. The kind of cool thing here that you can also do is you can see down at the bottom, it's going to show you the averages for each assignment. And that's sometimes valuable when you try to think about, did I make an assignment that was too difficult? Did I make an assignment that was too easy? So Mr. McFly maybe got a 77 on the final. Mr. Spicoli got a 22 on his final. Miss Hotsy Totsy got a 69. And Rip Van Winkle got a 78. And when you update, You can now see that your class got an average of a 67 on the final. Was it too hard? Probably not, given the fact that Mr. Spicoli and Ms. Totsi really brought the grades down. But again, it's valuable information, especially when you have more than 5 students. So that's how you use the grade book. Again, this is with simple weighted values. There's much more complicated ways you can do it. Explore as you want. Talk to various people around southwestern Michigan who have done it, but all we want you to do is basically use this as a recording device so that students can follow along with their grades and you don't have to turn in your grades at the end of the semester. This eliminates our checkout process.